Good evening, I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook on September 15th, 2025. We are tracking newly formed Invest 92L in the MDR this evening, and it is increasingly becoming better organized today. And it is looking more and more likely that it's going to be our next tropical storm here in the Atlantic, or at least, in the very least, a tropical system of some sort. And let's start off by looking at the National Hurricane Center to see what chances it has with the 8 p.m. advisory just released moments ago. Well, more like about 20 minutes ago. Still pretty much hot off the press. And the latest National Hurricane Center has now have this, or this is now at a 90% chance of development in the next 7 days. So we are pretty confident now that we are going to see development out of this system. And this is going to happen throughout the week as this moves to the northwest. And a lot of the models show development now, and they're also in pretty good agreement that this might even become a pretty strong hurricane further down the line, especially once this gets north of the MDR and beyond. So we now have something in the Atlantic to track, and we also have stuff to track in the Eastern Pacific too. We have another area of development here off the southwest coast of Mexico, and this is likely to become another tropical system here in the Pacific. And then we have Tropical Storm Mario with maximum sustained winds at 65 miles per hour now, strengthening pretty quickly, although this is not going to last for long, but still interesting nonetheless. It was a weak tropical storm off the coast of Mexico a few days ago, and then it suddenly resurrected from the dead and actually is doing pretty decently now, but probably will not hold on for long, and I'll show you why with satellite imagery in a little bit. But let's start in the MDR in the Atlantic, because I want to show you how 92L is looking this evening. And it's definitely looking pretty organized, definitely more organized than our last few waves in the Atlantic here, and producing a lot of convection right now. And the convective field, the expansiveness of this wave is quite large too. So it has more things going for it this time around than our other waves, especially the previous invest in the MDR about a week or so ago. Now just a little bit beyond a week had. So it definitely leaves me more to believe that this is more likely to become a tropical system. And I mean, the National Hurricane Center now has a 90% chance that this is going to do so. Well, to be fair, the last invest I think also had a 90% chance, but I think this time it is much more likely to verify. And you can just see it on satellite imagery doing much better today. In fact, probably just a day or so away, I would imagine, from fully developing into a tropical system. Still don't have an organized low-level center in here, but I'd imagine that's probably going to be in the works so long as convection continues and wind shear remains low enough for this to continue to blossom. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Pacific, you could see also quite a bit of convective activity there too. We're setting the stage again for potentially another system to develop here in the Pacific. And of course, we have Tropical Storm Mario here, which is on the northern portion in the Eastern Pacific, just off the coast of the Baja Peninsula. And this is doing pretty decently, or it's done pretty decently today. Again, latest National Hurricane Center advisory now up to 65 miles per hour, but you can kind of see in the latest frames convection kind of dissipating a little bit. So this is probably not going to hold on to long or hold on for long. In fact, National Hurricane Center actually has this collapsing and dissipating by tomorrow night. So it's going to move into those cooler northwestern Pacific waters and probably very quickly collapse then, and we won't talk about it for the rest of the week after that. Here's a satellite or vorticity picture from the University of Wisconsin website. And this is a general look at most of the Atlantic, but also a little bit of the Pacific. And you could actually see with this view and what little shot of the Pacific it has. You could see Mario's vorticity signature here just off the southwest coast of the Baja Peninsula. And you could definitely tell it has a well uniformed, solid, low level circulation. So definitely is a tropical cyclone, but once again, probably not going to hold on for much longer. And then in the Atlantic here, you could see the vorticity signature we have right now with a 92L, and it's still disorganized as of right now. It is a large wave. It's definitely very convectively active, but still has a little bit more work to do in terms of consolidation and forming, and before it officially undergoes tropical cyclogenesis. And then we also have this interesting thing here off the East Coast, and the models actually had some sort of interesting signature here of a low pressure off the East Coast, and this is definitely going to bring treacherous conditions to the Outer Banks of North Carolina with heavy rain and gusty winds, pretty much as if this was a tropical storm. The only difference is it's not going to be a tropical storm because there is very high wind shear right now over the system, but I will tell you that if conditions were probably more favorable here off the east coast of the United States and especially off the coast of North Carolina, I'd imagine this vorticity piece here probably would indeed be a tropical or subtropical system, but it's not. But in reality, it really only is a scientific designation. Does not mean that we will not see similar impacts here along the outer banks of North Carolina and in general North Carolina over the next several days. So please keep in mind of that. Here's a mid-level water vapor image shot to show you how things are going in the MDR right now. And this is in general to show you the water content that Invest 92L has with it. Definitely, I mean, there is some dry air to the northwest, as typically there is or at least typical of what we've been seeing over the past several weeks here in the Atlantic, but it's definitely holding up. It seems to have its own moisture bubble, and I will tell you that there is pretty good outflow that's very noticeable on satellite here. So again, 92L, in my opinion, honestly has more things going for it this time around for it to be able to develop, unlike past invests, especially like more than a week ago. There was definitely a lot more dry air, definitely more unfavorable shear conditions, although water temperatures are still very warm. And again, just looking at the MDR and even extending pretty much throughout the entirety of the deep tropics, sea surface temperature is very, very warm here. Anomalies as much as a degree Celsius, if not more, above normal. So more than enough fuel for 92L to take advantage of. And it even extends up northward here into the subtropics. And that's important because this is going to turn northwest and then eventually north. And then more than likely 92L will be a out to sea storm. But the warm sea surface temperatures here in the subtropics definitely going to help aid in this probably becoming a hurricane, as I'll show you with the models in just a moment. But I want to show you tropical cyclone heat potential 2, the amount of energy that is in the ocean below the surface. So kind of this map showing how things are on a surface level of warmth. And this map is the energy and heat that we have below the ocean surface, and is available for 92L to tap into. And just look again as this heads further west. A lot of energy available for 92L to use, and it'll probably use it quite well, as I'm going to show you here on the GFS, and then I'll show you the European, and then we'll call it a night. Taking it over the next several days here on the GFS, develops. It probably becomes a tropical system by the time we get to later this week. And then, as again, I've mentioned that we do have tuts out here, so it kind of struggles for a little bit, but notice, especially as we head towards the end of the week, this thing really then begins to consolidate, and then by the time we get to this time next week, we're dealing with probably a pretty powerful or pretty strong storm curving to the northwest and then to the north here, out to sea in the Atlantic. And then this is probably going to be a powerful hurricane, probably going to produce a few more ace points, maybe help us get a little bit more on the near normal side of hurricane season. Definitely not going to help us get back to above normal, since we are really fallen way behind in terms of ace in the Atlantic right now. It's going to take more than one of these long tracked high ace producing storms to really rack up the ace totals, but this will definitely help add on to the ace a little bit. And actually, you do notice here that the GFS is showing a potential signal for another wave right behind 92L here to develop around a week out. And that's why I say that 92L is probably the beginning of finally the peak of the hurricane season, kicking into high gear officially. And then finally, looking at the European here, pretty much the same thing. Now, it seems like the European begins the strengthening phase of this system a little bit earlier. And interestingly enough, comparing the GFS to the GFS, did I say GFS twice? GFS and Euro, kind of going back and forth between the two models. Notice the track discrepancy here. European further west, while the GFS is further off to the northeast. And I'm not going to make any comments about exactly what this will mean and what potential implications this will have. But I will actually say, for the most part, this is going to go out to sea. But Bermuda is still, it's kind of in the open central Atlantic. So we're going to have to watch and see what happens. And actually, if I do go further out than 7 days, you do see here that the European actually brings us very close to Bermuda. So I guess actually this won't be a complete out to sea storm after all. We might have to still watch here in Bermuda, but both of the models, both the European and the GFS, two major global models here within the next week, has this invest developing and has this becoming a strong hurricane. So we are starting to come to consensus that this could actually be a decent storm. And it might be our next named storm in the Atlantic finally. We've been waiting for this for a while. Next name on the list is Gabrielle, and we're probably going to be dealing with Hurricane Gabrielle here coming up in the Atlantic. So it looks like it's about time. And as I said before as well, with the GFS2, you notice around a week out, GFS starting to show a signal for another wave. We might have to watch that too and see what it does, as it looks like the hurricane season is finally beginning to kick into high gear. And I'm not saying finally as in yay, yay, hooray, hurricanes and mass destruction. I'm cheering all that on. No, no, no. Definitely not. But, I am a tropical enthusiast and it's interesting tracking hurricanes. They are a very interesting and fascinating force of nature. And it's September after all. There's going to be activity that occurs. So might as well, track and, get excited about it, especially if it's not going to affect too many people. So why not? But with that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Hope you enjoyed what you saw today. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And as always, I'll be back with more on 92L and the rest of the tropics tomorrow. See you then.